Good morning. Apparently, we've got some internet issues this morning. Definitely Russia disinformation. It's Russia all over again. Pass me the hat.
We're being hacked, like Hillary's server.
I've brought in the great Jonathan Witt this morning. And don't get excited if you're a Trump fan, because it's not fucking in the bag yet. And if you're a Harris fan, also don't get excited, because it's definitely not going to be cheatable like the last, 4 years. 4 years ago when Biden suddenly won in the morning after we went to sleep in the night. So Jonathan Witt is here. Of course, he has been an outrageously outspoken commentator on American politics for the longest time. He's someone who I think is very well informed about what's going on over there. He's been, like I am, obsessed with this election. And somebody said in the comments just now, the reason that we weren't on at 6 o'clock was because I've canceled the show because I want to sit at home with my 4 screens and watch the results come in. And trust me, I woke up at like 4:30 this morning, and I started. Obviously, it's very early results now, so there's not that much to get excited about yet. And I mean, I just get into the vibe of this. It doesn't even matter to me necessarily who wins. I obviously have been very vocal about the fact that I think Kamala Harris is a terrible, terrible candidate. She'll be a terrible president. And that I'd prefer Donald Trump. And I love the team that he's assembled around him, as we've spoken about for the last, 6 weeks. I mean, I just can't wait for him to say to Bobby Kennedy and to Vivek and to Elon and to Tulsi Gabbard, go. And Ron Paul, who's now...
Yeah, Ron Paul came out and endorsed him.
I mean, if he just says to them, okay, just clean out the bureaucracy. I mean, those guys are super efficient, right? There isn't going to be one...
Well, Elon fired 80% of the staff at Twitter.
Yeah.
And Twitter works better than it ever did.
It's phenomenal.
So,
I mean, imagine if they can get their government for the first time ever down instead of up, because it just keeps... It's like a cancer.
That's the problem with government.
It just
metastasizes. It never, ever shrinks.
So you know about cancer as well. So this is something... it just grows and grows, and a government is like a cancer.
Yeah.
I also wonder what the most interesting takeaways from this election are going to be, because people are always talking about battleground states. I saw this morning Ted Cruz from Texas announced his victory and thanked the Democrat who ran against him, a guy called Allred.
Yeah.
And apparently, I mean, we were told Ted Cruz is on his way out. So I think he's probably...
Well, there were a couple of predictions that were never going to come true. Ted Cruz, Texas, there was a poll over the weekend which is usually reliable. It's Ann Seltzer.
Hang on. Yeah. She's the one who called Iowa.
Yes, she said that Harris would win Iowa by, I think, +3. Bearing in mind that Trump was up in Iowa 8 to 10 points for the past 6 months, and has never lost Iowa. It's a Republican state. Yeah. It's never going to vote for Kamala.
And old Ann Seltzer's now looking a bit stupid. But then, by the way, I just want to say at this point, we must take down the names of all these pollsters. No, seriously, because these people have been lording it over the media for the last 6 months, maybe more, telling us exactly what they think. And most of them have been so 50-50 on everything that they haven't provided any intel whatsoever. In other words, because they were burnt in 2016.
Well, did you see what Nate Silver did?
What did he do?
He's from 538. He's not from 538. He's not from 538 anymore. But
he's got his own poll
now. But he sat on. He sort of, up to the elections, he was like, it's looking like Trump 51. It's looking like Harris 51. That kind of thing. And then
because their whole reputation rests on this.
Yesterday, he releases a thing going, "No, we ran a simulation." 80,000 times or something, and Harris won 40,013 times. So
please.
We're giving it to Harris. So basically what he said is, I ran a coin flip, and
because that's exactly what you
that's
do.
exactly what you would get with a coin flip. So what value does that add to?
No, I think AI's got a better track record at this point than any of these people, and even AI can't tell you what's going on right now. No, I think
complex systems, right?
Too close to call. I mean, the first time they used that in my living memory, and let's just cast our minds back. Bush Gore, right? And the Chads in Florida.
The hanging Chads.
That's right.
The reason why they have electronic voting, which is just a terrible idea.
Disaster. Yeah. Even Trump said in his final speech yesterday, because I'm such an election nerd. And by the way, I don't want to hear from you in the comments if you don't give a shit. Then just find something else for today. I really could give a shit. Going to find something else to listen to.
It's important we're avoiding World War III. So,
Carl says, has there been a full week without fuck-ups since James started? Woo-hoo-hoo. It's vicious. Okay, here we go. I would have been so fired at this stage, says Mo Rabin. I'm not sure why. James is doing his job. Ever since he started, he's been taking over. I think he is Kamala's agent, says Sugar Shabalala. You work for Kamala Harris, James? Okay, he does. And James is actually very sad that Kamala is not doing so well in the early results. He's a big Kamala fan, you know?
Should have voted, James. You could have just gone to any state without ID.
In fact, I think both...
And you could have voted.
Both James and Flex are both Kamala Harris supporters. You know, this show is very balanced. If I'm a Trump supporter, we have to have producers who are Kamala supporters.
There we go. Absolutely. They want to be unemployed. And
no, but they also, I mean...
Also
Kamala
drafted into a war.
Kamala doesn't really care about competence or merit, which is why they know... So that's why they like her, you know?
That's great.
She's always got their back. Don't worry. It doesn't matter how bad you are at your job. We'll still keep you there.
Kamala.
Okay.
Where does she go if she loses?
No, you will never hear from her again. She will be memory hold faster than a Kleenex tissue after you've blown your nose. You will never, ever
Given
hear...
the start of her career, that's an interesting reference.
The Kleenex. No, I didn't say Willie Brown, okay? Kamala Harris will be forgotten by tomorrow, 12 o'clock, if she loses. I mean that. You will never hear... She may give a concession
Don't
speech.
be so sure. I think they might try the 25th Joe. And still make her president.
Let's throw
for a
her
short
in,
period
and
of time.
we still won.
For a period of time. They'll be like, she's still the first black president.
Can I tell you something?
Female
America.
Black president.
Everybody goes, oh well, the American presidential election, including me, it's a very important thing. It sets the agenda for the world for the next 4 years, right?
Yeah.
But the current incumbent president of the United States is a houseplant. He's a garden vegetable. He is probably lying on a beach.
So it's
Delaware.
It's very concerning, but also somewhat reassuring that the entire world is on autopilot.
Right,
and
exactly.
things are roughly okay.
It's still okay.
It's a fair libertarian argument against any kind of government.
It's exactly right. Like when I worked at the SABC and they had constant changes of CEOs, and then there was a board and there wasn't a board, and we still had a show every morning. It proves the point that actually some of these hierarchies that we build are unnecessary.
Absolutely.
And I know that there are going to be very, very angry people no matter who wins this election in America. I can't help thinking... I can't help thinking, and maybe I'm biased about this. I'd be happy for anyone in the comments to correct me if they disagree. But, you know, if Trump doesn't win, like I'm not going to fall in a heap. My life will carry on. I mean, I'll be fine. I'm not going to scream on the street.
Yeah, but you talk about angry people, right?
Yeah.
So the reality is obviously everyone loves to refer to January 6th and then go,
Why,
look at the
happened?
Republicans. Yeah, exactly. But there was a small riot, no big
Someone
deal.
shat on Nancy Pelosi's
Then
desk.
they opened the doors and let people have a look around the Capitol, and then they arrested all those people. And shame, some poor girl got shot. But
No. But let's be clear also, that girl was a protester.
Absolutely.
And the policeman who died, I think there were 3 in the end. 2 of them died long after.
One died the next day from a stroke.
Yeah, but the guy who died on the day apparently...
No policeman died on the day.
Okay, well, I heard that there was also one of them was a suicide.
No,
so it wasn't a result of the actual protest. It wasn't like a protester shot a policeman.
Absolutely, there was no direct deaths. The only death on January 6th was the protest. But
anyway,
this is the thing.
like I say to people, you've got to move on from January.
You do have to move. But this is the point, right? From January 20th, 2020, where is the anger and the violence from Republicans? They went, okay, we really don't like Joe Biden.
Yeah.
We aren't happy about the result, but it is what it is. We don't. Many of them, in fact, the majority, don't believe it was a fair election, but they moved on, right? And they got on with it. No cities burned down.
Joe Biden's been
nothing
president
happened.
for 4 years.
DC is currently boarded up.
Yeah.
So the entire downtown area of DC, where you normally would walk and buy a burger at McDonald's and walk into Gap and get a sweatshirt or whatever, it's all boarded up. And DC's a deeply blue city. There are no Republicans there.
92% for Kamala as we speak.
Yeah. So the thing is what riot are you scared of? Who's going to riot? It's not the Republicans. It's going to be the Democrats.
Well.
So the anger doesn't go both ways, frankly. And it wasn't the Republicans who burnt down Minneapolis. So these are just facts. While Tim Walter's wife sat on her stoop and smelt the burning
she
rubber,
liked that. She said
and
it
liked the
smelled
smell.
like revolution.
Exactly.
Yeah,
she
Tim
did.
Walter's
She enjoyed
wife.
that. As long as it's
Tampon Tim's wife.
Tampon
Let's just
Tim.
give him his
That
dues.
is the best name he's ever given anyone.
Tampon Tim. Tampon Tim.
Just perfect.
It's great.
Absolutely perfect.
And he has made absolutely zero impact in this election.
Well, I mean, are you surprised? I mean, he's
No,
very weak.
but I think, Kamala did admit that she was pretty tired, and she said she wasn't really thinking when. She actually admitted this in one of the interviews, the few interviews that she gave, that she didn't really apply her mind properly when she nominated him as VP, and you can tell.
But
I don't think he even knows.
Don't you think that's an excuse? Does she apply her mind to anything?
I don't know.
It doesn't appear as if she's
know.
ever done that.
I don't know. She really didn't. She didn't get that people were looking for something authentic. Apparently, she was on her phone pretending to be speaking to a voter yesterday, and then
yes, I saw that.
Someone saw her phone as she turned it, and she was on camera mode.
Yeah.
So she was taking a.
It's possible she was still on the phone.
Yeah, but this would be typical because.
That's right. She's fake.
Her entire campaign has been performative from beginning to end, and I think people are just sick of that. She has to be so scripted, she has to be so controlled, ins, outs, everything is like it's plotted to the nth degree. Whereas you give Donald Trump a microphone, put a camera in front of him, and he can carry on for 4 hours.
Yeah. Well, he's proven that, and I think
and bore everyone to death. But he can still.
If they were going to be honest in analyzing, let's see. The results are not in yet, and I think a lot of people, certainly on the Trump side, are very positive at this stage. And MSNBC is starting to melt down, so that's a good sign for Trump fans. The issue I have is that Arizona is not reported, and none of the blue wall states are reported. So Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And if she wins Arizona and those three, which is also where there were claimed to be shenanigans last time.
Yes.
But if she wins those three, it's irrelevant. She wins the presidency. So I think,
So that's what you're watching.
Yeah.
You're waiting for that.
If he wins any one of the blue states, it's over, in my opinion. Because I don't think she wins the presidency if he wins Wisconsin or Pennsylvania.
And
I think Michigan's an outside shot.
What do you make of this idea that he could win the popular vote? What would that do? Because that's always been kind of the Democrats' final submission. It's like, but the Electoral College is a rigged system. When they've lost before, this is what they've said. I remember with Hillary, she wrote a whole book on this. But I got the popular vote. No one cares, right? But what if he wins the popular vote? What if there's been that much of a swing? Because it's interesting, in the little bits that I've picked up this morning and over the last couple of days, but particularly since voting has been, these are exit polls now. The word is that young voters, particularly young minority voters, so we're talking about young Hispanic men and women, young black men and women, immigrants, legal immigrants, all voting majority for Trump. There's a big swing there in young people.
Well, the swing, so not a majority. I think Kamala will still win a majority.
I think there are certain black neighborhoods, black counties in Georgia,
there's one
which
specifically
has swung completely.
No Republican has won in 100 years.
That's the one. That's the one I heard about this morning.
I think, if I'm not mistaken.
And all the analysts are talking about, what does this mean?
Yeah, I think so. The popular vote's interesting because, in my view, the problem with the popular vote in the States is because there's an electoral college, people in places like California and New York will just not vote. They'll just say, well, I'm not gonna vote. There's no point. California's going to be blue whatever happens. So me going and voting makes no difference because my senator's going to be Adam Schiff. I mean, really? And we're always giving our electoral college votes to the Democrat president. That's been the recent criticism of Reagan, by the way, with regards to an amnesty he created for immigrants in '86, I think it was, and that's turned California blue, and it's never been anything since
then.
And people, will talk about Arnie, but Arnold was a different kettle of fish. Firstly, he was basically a Democrat running as a Republican. And you can see that today. I mean, he has sided with Democrats ever since he was governor. So he's never really been a Republican.
Well, he couldn't even find the balls to say that he'd changed his mind in this election, even though, I mean, he wrote this long, dreary essay.
Convoluted.
Yeah, it's like the world's worst monologue, all about how I can't really decide. It's very difficult. And I mean, this is a guy who used to have the personality and the ability to be one man against a million, and he wouldn't have minded.
And you think if any election where he could have changed his mind, it would have been this one, because you've got a lot of people. You know, now it's fine to turn around and go, listen, I support Trump. I'm gonna go with Trump.
I think that's an interesting thing that's happened over the last maybe 2 years, probably even sooner than that, like a year and a half. It's become acceptable again, because what the Democrats did very well after the Joe Biden victory, in inverted commas, is they made Trump persona non grata for many people. You couldn't be publicly a supporter of Donald Trump and be in polite society.
Yeah.
Because people have said, oh, you support an election denier and all of this stuff. And I think what's happened is you've slowly started to see very prominent people say, actually, no, I'm not going to be told what the narrative is that I need to parrot. And they've made it acceptable for people down the line who really are the sort of people who just follow the popular view anyway. They've made it okay for those people to say, I'm not going to support the Democrats anymore.
Yeah, they have done that, but I think the media is completely to blame, because the thing is for 10 years now, they've basically set up Trump as, and they've said it openly, they've set him up as Hitler. And they kept... I
thought he was, though. Didn't he have a Nazi rally like last week? I heard that he had
Madison
a Nazi
Square
rally,
Garden. They've set him up, and the problem is they kept telling these narrative lies about him, and that worked for about the first 6 to 8 years. And then everyone started looking at it and saying, well, okay, I've looked into that particular narrative. Turns out it's a hoax. And then I went and looked at another one. Turns out it's also a hoax.
Yeah.
And so now, when they say he's Hitler, nobody believes it, because they've cried wolf too many times.
Well, you say the media, and I think we must just spend a few minutes here, because the reason I've become so much of a Donald Trump supporter, if I am so much of a Donald Trump supporter, because I really don't think about it every day, but I'm interested in American politics, have been since the Clinton era. In fact, possibly even when I was a little kid. And I remember seeing Ronnie, that's how old I am, Ronnie Reagan on TV. He was the first president I saw on television. But I am more interested in the media and the supposed intelligentsia being shown that they actually don't know fucking anything. This would give me the greatest joy. I am actually more interested in media people wailing and crying and gnashing their teeth and having their credibility smashed against the rocks.
You might see that meltdown again. I mean,
than I am about Donald Trump going to the White House. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Because I watched a little clip this morning. I think it was on Sky.
Yeah.
And Dominic Waghorn, okay?
Oh.
Right. He's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And he's interviewing people at they're staying up all night, a watch party.
Okay.
And he goes up to this couple, and the guy's wearing a big Trump hat, Make America Great Again. And the wife is, like, she's a normal, middle American mom, right?
Yeah.
He goes up to her, and he's like, well, how are you feeling? And she goes, no, I'm feeling optimistic. I think this is going to be good. Pennsylvania is a blue-collar state. We are all hardworking people. Drill, baby, drill. We want our borders closed. We don't want our borders open. She said all of these things that she's been listening. She's an informed voter. And he goes, well, and what do you think about female reproductive rights? And she says to this journalist from the UK, she says, listen, you don't vote for a president just because you want to have an out if you have random sex. She says, of course, we make exceptions for rape and incest and all of those things. She said, you could take the morning after pill. This is this woman, right? No, this is not my opinion. And she puts this guy in his place. She goes, frankly, if you are more interested in being able to have an abortion than you are about the economy and open borders
Yeah.
and all of this stuff, then you've got your priorities wrong. And she goes, and I want to tell all women. And you can see he's like, this journalist's getting very uncomfortable now because he's being told.
That's not the messaging that they're meant to have.
Exactly. And they've been basically ignoring people like this for, I don't know, 12, 14 years now.
Yeah.
And they've thought, well, we don't need to talk to these rubes. Who are these people in these stupid backward states that could vote Trump and wear red hats? They must be morons. And she turns out to be more well-informed than he is.
Mm-hmm.
She turns out not to be living in an echo chamber like he is. She turns out to have real, what they call in America, kitchen table issues, which she's very well versed at. And she has strong opinions, which she's not going to back down from just because some guy with a microphone and a camera tells her she shouldn't be thinking that way. And he turns downcast to the camera afterwards and goes, well, as you can hear, there's quite an atmosphere here of excitement and people are eating food. And now he doesn't know what else to say, so he starts talking about the environment. And then he goes back to the studio, and everyone in the studio is
Doesn't know
sitting
what
there,
to say.
and they go, well, some interesting points of view on abortion there.
Well, but that's also a false narrative, right? So this is the other problem with the entire driving point of the Democrat campaign, which has been Republican rights for women.
Yeah.
And they thought, well, it worked in 2022, so it'll work in 2024. But again, the narrative is starting to fail. So there is no threat to abortion rights for the majority of Americans.
And the loudest noises are coming from people inside states where they already have the right to have abortions pretty much up to 9 months in places like California.
And New York, sure.
Yeah.
But even in other
So
states.
why are they screeching?
Even in red states.
But why are they screeching in California? Who wants to know? What are you moaning about? That's like me complaining that I can't go and get a coffee first thing in the morning when I can get a coffee any morning.
Yeah. No, it's a non-issue. But even in states, I think they're saving the republic to a point because
Don't you
even
think
though
they're just low-level, emotive people who think that this is what the average woman in America wants, and they're just trying to grab their attention and grab their vote any way they can. They actually think that little of women.
I mean, maybe, but I just think it's really cynical. I think it's more planned and calculated than that. You know, the Democrats movement doesn't just decide willy-nilly which issues to run with.
Willie Brown.
Exactly. They don't just decide like that. They're very thoughtful about this stuff, and they decide where it's going to have the most impact. And they usually pick emotive issues like abortion. So you'll seldom see a Democrat running purely on the economy.
Yeah.
Because the economy is a numbers game, and it's
more-
either up or it's down.
And it's complicated.
Well, it's complex, and you might have to do things that you wouldn't want to do that would affect your friends. So, for example, you may have to reduce taxes actually to improve the economy, and you may have to do some tariff things like Trump suggests, and you may have to even look at the income tax and say, why are we taxing people to death? But you know, Democrat states don't tend to do that. Those are the states with the highest taxes, and Republican states are the ones with the lowest taxes. Places like Texas, places like Florida, and so I think the abortion thing is quite cynical, but I think people are seeing through it because at the end of the day, it's no longer a federal issue. It's become a states' rights issue, which is what it should always have been. Because Congress is only really allowed to make law with regards to anything that involves taxation.
Okay.
And the spending of that tax money, but essentially that's the constitutional limitation on them. So they can't make laws about abortion. So even if they wanted to, they couldn't pass a Roe versus Wade rule because that would probably be unconstitutional. And the Supreme Court should never have actually made that ruling. In fact, Ruth Bader Ginsburg agreed that was shitty law. And she was an arch
great
Democrat.
RBG, huh?
The RBG, yeah, exactly. Who a lot of Democrats now hate, actually, because she didn't give up her
she
seat.
hung on too long.
Yeah, and then,
So I saw Barack Obama's last tweet last night because I still follow him, for better or for worse.
Oh, did you see the election
He goes,
manipulation tweets?
Yes, we can. That was his last thing.
Oh, is that
yes,
his
we
last
can.
one?
Go out and vote. And I thought, I would love to know. There are a couple of houses in America I'd like to just have a fly on the wall, bird's eye view of, right? I'd love to be in Mar-a-Lago and to watch like Trump and Melania as
Sure.
they announce these things as they come through. I'd like to see I don't really care about like Harris and what's his name, the Doug Emhoff, the husband. I don't really care what they're doing. I think Kamala doesn't have emotions. I think she's like a robot.
Yeah.
I would like to see what's going on in the Obama house. I'd like to see like Barack sitting there like sweating over this because he cares more about this. He's been campaigning harder for Kamala,
Which is very weird.
than I think he did in his last
Because Michelle
election.
does not like her.
Oh, she doesn't?
No, Michelle does not like her at all. And in fact, Michelle,
How do you know
to a
that?
point, because if you look at, so firstly, remember that the Obamas were the last heavyweights in the Republican Party, in the Democrat Party to endorse Kamala. Kamala. And it all happened quite quickly because they did the coup on that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But the
coup?
Obamas,
Did you say a coup? Is that
coup,
when, like when they
absolutely.
replaced
It was a
one
palace
person with
coup.
another, and there was no
100%.
primary or anything?
yeah, it was a complete palace coup. We still don't know what
Here's your
actually happened.
candidate. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, we don't know what happened. But
No.
Biden releases a statement on Twitter, nowhere else, right? It's on a letterhead that is his personal letterhead, which is weird because he never uses that as the president, even for party matters. And then he signs it at the bottom. It's underlined. He's never underlined his
Because
signature
Jill
before.
wrote. Jill signed it.
Well,
that's why.
okay. In the letter, it says, look, I'm not endorsing anyone. I think we should go and have a process to
Yeah.
find out who should replace me, which was what Obama wanted, by the way.
Oh, by the way, that's also what they're going to claim. If the Democrats do lose this, they'll say, "Oh, that's where we screwed up."
What?
Oh yeah, they'll say,
how
"No, no.
with the
Well,
candidate-
we should have primaried everyone again,
Yeah,
They will.
maybe. Well, but they should have
or
gone.
we should have stuck with Joe." Because Joe's saying we should have stuck with Joe, right?
Joe,
Did he-
I think might have done better if he.
I
if,
think
if
he would have done
Kamala
better.
loses, let me tell you, there are some of these voting districts that you can already see where Trump is winning, that have fully reported now. There's no doubt that Joe would have done better than Kamala has. So that's for
I
sure.
can Scranton,
But
Pennsylvania.
remember, 45 minutes after that letter gets released, not endorsing anyone,
Yeah.
then there's a tweet that comes out that says, "I fully endorse
Yeah,
Kamala."
yeah.
And the problem is that the tweet of the letter and the endorsement don't line up because they are opposite to each other. I personally believe that the letter was forced by Pelosi and Obama and co. Purposefully didn't endorse anyone because they wanted to run a process at the convention.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jill was like, "Screw you. If you're going to screw us, I'm going to screw you." So she put Kamala in there because she knew they didn't want Kamala. And they wanted to run a sort of democratic process, and then Kamala would lose. And then they'd go, "You know what? Democracy is what matters," right? And they'd send out their talking points to the networks, and they'd say,
Yeah, sure.
"You've got to. This is what you've got to follow." And in fact, Jill went to the polling station yesterday and wore all red.
Oh, interesting.
When does a Democrat president's wife wear red to the polls? Very strange.
These are signals. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And,
why do you say Michelle?
and Biden's.
So why does Michelle hate Kamala? I still don't get it.
So Michelle, so I just don't think she likes Kamala. I don't think she thinks much of her, which would be a fair opinion.
Not much to think.
But if you look at campaigning, Michelle has done very little for Kamala, and in fact, last week had to be like pulled out
Yeah.
to come to
Against
one
her
rally where she spent a few minutes kind of saying, vote for Kamala. But there hasn't been the real sort of push. The Obamas weren't that nuts about Biden either, but they did more for him. And it's known that they don't like Biden very much. But there was more campaigning for Biden. I think Obama's done about the same, Barack. But Michelle has definitely been
She's been absent.
much more absent than you would have thought she would have been.
Do you think that celebrity endorsements mean a damn thing?
No, well, but to some people,
Taylor
maybe they
Swift,
do.
Beyonce. There was a big concert that Kamala had. Lady Gaga performed. They had this whole show at her last rally. Do you think this helps? Do you think it makes any difference at all? Because celebrity endorsements, I suppose, people have always thought that must mean something.
We just don't think of celebrities in the same way anymore. They're just not as big a deal. I mean, perhaps this is an age thing, but 20 years ago, you went to the movies a lot. You looked forward to the next whatever film it was.
But there were degrees.
These people
there were degrees of separation.
Yeah, but they were larger than life, and it was amazing if you sort of saw them, if you were overseas and you saw them for some reason, or what they said had meaning. I think that a lot of that's gone just because of the way media has changed, but I also think that a lot of them have trashed their names. Taylor Swift is not influencing anyone because everyone who is a Taylor Swift fan was probably going to vote for Kamala anyway. They're all young women who think that they're not going to be able to get an abortion after getting drunk one night and having, wild sex. And the men in their lives are the same problem. They're young men who want their girlfriends or women they hook up with to be able to have abortions for the same reason, right? So I don't think she swings that. I don't think she harms it, but I don't think she swings it. And then, in the context of what is basically P. Diddy having run a giant sex ring, human
style.
trafficking operation for his entire career, which probably involves the majority of the music industry and a large portion of Hollywood. I think their credibility is hanging by a tether at this stage. And if a tape comes out, well,
J-Lo was crying. She's so scared that tape's going to come out.
J-Lo, who wants you to vote for Kamala but couldn't tell you not to go near Diddy.
Yeah, so we must trust her judgment. Okay, so there's a lot going on here, and I look at the comments, and there's people talking about Jake Paul coming out supporting Donald Trump. Nobody cares about that either.
No.
I think it's also because everyone's on social media, right? So the degrees of separation are so much less now. You can actually, who cares what Jake Paul says? Oh, I'm also on YouTube. That's how people feel.
Yeah.
And like, well, I've also got a YouTube channel. Who's Jake Paul?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what the numbers are, because we
Absolutely.
know how much of this
But
is...
also, what's his claim to fame? Like, what has he done that's an achievement? One of the great things that's happening is this realignment to actors being prostitutes and being seen correctly as prostitutes.
Which they have been throughout
and
history.
Entertainers being seen as, like, relatively lowly individuals. Like, you're here to entertain. Like, we are the actual, like... We are society. You are coming to entertain us. And if we are happy, we will throw some pennies your way. And if we're not, you get rotten fruit, right? And that's not a bad thing that we're returning to that. Like, we should be holding people like Elon Musk up on a pedestal, and we should not be holding people like Jennifer Lopez up on a pedestal. Like, it's so obvious, but I think we spent the end of the second half and certainly the end of that century, 21st century, with those people all on a pedestal. And their time has come. And it's right, because before the invention of pretty much film, they weren't important people. And they're good for entertainment, and that's where it begins and ends.
I do think, though, that Joe Rogan had an impact. And I noticed that in the last 10 days, he's had Donald Trump, Elon Musk, J.D. Vance.
Yes.
And it's not the first time Elon's been on
But you could see him, you could see his opinion. I did a long thread on that whole interview he did with Trump. And I just summarized, I listened to it. And I summarized that whole, so I ended up listening to that podcast 3 or 4 times over, because I ended up going back to sort of be able to do that. And you could actually, over the podcast, see Rogan warming to Trump. Because he clearly had an idea of who the man was in his head, who he'd been told the guy was, who he had seen on television, etc., and in the short clips. And as he sat with this guy and spent 3 hours and realized that he's actually pretty smart, he's got insight into things, he understands how to do business and how to do deals and how to wield power. You could see Rogan changing towards him, and the first hour or so, Rogan's quite serious and there's no joking. And then as it moves on, he starts to laugh and he starts to have a good time and he starts to sort of take Trump's jokes as they're meant. And he loosens quite a lot. And you could see that happening in real time. And then remember, before he had J.D. Vance on, he had wanted to get Kamala on. And he even said in the Trump podcast, Trump had been very derogatory, obviously, of Kamala. Said she's low IQ in that podcast. He said he wants her to Rogan said he wanted her on. And Trump
What did he say about Liz Cheney this week?
She's a very stupid
person. I know that a lot of people go, oh, you shouldn't speak like that if you're a statesman. But this is part of his appeal. I wish people would stop doing this. And it's a certain kind of person. It's the same people who say to you shouldn't use bad language. Real people talk like that.
Well, real powerful people talk like that as well.
Absolutely.
Sorry, but you've never been in an executive boardroom if you think that those people don't use
Foul
F-bombs
language.
all the time.
Right.
That's just the reality. And when you're in big business, for example, you have to speak honestly, because otherwise you're going to go out of business. Because if you don't assess the environment correctly and have a very, very native understanding of what's going on, you're not going to be able to sell.
Right, but I interrupted you. You were saying about him calling Kamala very low IQ with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, so he did all that, and then Rogan said, "I really want her on," and and then Trump said, "Oh, please get her on. She won't even last 10 minutes. She'll be in a coma." He was
was
as I
laying it
say,
on.
incredibly derogatory. and even beyond that, Rogan pushed back and said, and this is towards the end of the interview, once he's already warmed to Trump, and he said, I just want to have a conversation with Kamala. I don't want to catch her out. I just want to have a conversation with her. I just want people to see who she is. Which I think has been a big problem of this election, because I don't think even people who support her can tell you who she is. They can tell you who Trump is, even the people who don't like
I
him.
heard an interesting point of view from Ben Shapiro when he was talking to Bill Maher. He said, and in fact he had a debate with Sam Harris, which I haven't listened to, and you might have.
Pieces. I can't handle Sam anymore.
Okay, well, look at this, 205 to 230 at the moment. This is, where are you getting this one? Oh, Google. Okay. All right.
The people at
it's
Google are
interesting.
also crying.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Keep looking at that. That's good. That's good to see. 205 to 230. Remember, the magic number is 270.
Just go to New York.
Yeah.
Sorry. Carry on.
James, you know where New York is. Let's see.
On the
This'll be
right-hand
fun.
side, top
This'll
right.
be fun. NY. Yeah, there we go.
Oh
There
my
we
God.
go. Well done. Yeah, you were there.
Almost there.
All right, go back. There we go.
So what's interesting there is Trump won't win it, but that split is much narrowed. So I think this, if I'm not mistaken, Biden won that by 60 plus in 2020, and that's a massive swing already over there. Arizona will be interesting as well, and Nevada. Both of those are. Nevada's not many votes.
So
Yeah.
the point I was getting to just now is Shapiro said, and I thought it was an interesting point, that there are many pro-Trump arguments from MAGA people and recent Democrat converts, the likes of Bobby Kennedy and so on. There are very many anti-Trump arguments, and some of them are quite good arguments. The man's temperament, his characterization of his opponents as very low IQ and that sort of thing. The fact that he's coarse and he's egomaniacal and he's got this tendency to speak off the cuff, which upsets lots of people who prefer polite society and so on. But you could also criticize some of his policies. There are very good reasons for people to take him on about, the economic policies he has, particularly with regard to tariffs, which you brought up just now.
Yeah.
I mean, Republicans are quite divided on that. But what Shapiro said is that he hasn't heard yet a convincing pro-Kamala argument, as in she is the right candidate
Because these are
because
the
of
things
X,
she'll
Y,
do.
and Z. I mean, she's kind of inherited a bunch of Democrat positions on things. Some of them she's flip-flopped around.
Yeah.
And, it was very hard to kind of nail her down in terms of how do you feel about borders? Because she doesn't want to be associated with the Biden border policies. She emphatically denies she was ever border czar.
Yeah.
But then she's happy to take the credit for other things in the Biden administration. And when she's asked on The View, is there anything from the last 4 years that you would change? And she goes, nah, not really.
I can't think of a thing.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to form a pro-Kamala argument. And it's interesting to watch Democrats dance around this.
I think that's assuming she loses, and again, it's trending that way, but assuming she loses, that will be, if anyone's honest, that will be the real criticism of this campaign, which is that the Democrats put up a poor candidate who they did not tell anyone what she really stood for. And she is incapable of telling people what she really stands for. She seems to not know any issues really well.
Yeah.
She has these canned lines about, so the border, for example, she decided she was going to pretend like she was going to be strong on the border.
Yeah.
And her canned line is, I'm the only person in the campaign who has prosecuted transnational criminals, right? Because as Attorney General in California, there were a couple of cases that were against cartel members.
Right.
Which there's no evidence she ever prosecuted, I might add, or had any sort of, she directed, put it that way. They were sort of part of policy and what her DAs were doing anyway. But so they canned lines, and so no one can describe what she actually stands for. And I think that's going to be a real failing, is people can say exactly what Trump stands for. And this has been his main pitch. His main pitch has been, were you better off 4 years ago than you are today? And the reality is that most Americans are going to, if they're honest, they're going to have to say, perhaps not certain elites, but most Americans will have to say yes. I was better off 4 years ago before inflation on some items up to 40, 50% kicked in. I was better off when I wasn't worried that my young son or daughter is going to be drafted into a war somewhere else in the world. I was better off when we weren't sending hundreds of billions of dollars to other countries to fight their wars, while we can't even afford to fund FEMA when we have a hurricane. People are going, and so Trump made an argument. Kamala didn't make an argument, and so that's perfectly fair commentary by Ben.
Lots of people enjoying your insights here, which is exactly why we brought you on, so thank you. But there is a question here from Rory Mitchell, which makes a lot of sense to me. Who would be a better option for South Africa, Trump or Kamala?
So I think Trump's going to hurt us in the beginning, if he cares. But I think he will, because
aren't we just a shithole country, though? He doesn't really.
Yeah, but we're a shithole country that we have a goer with, which costs them.
Yeah.
It's in their sort of minus column, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it costs them a lot of money, but it's definitely a favor they do for us. That's how they view it. So we've got a goer. We're a big economy on the continent. As far as China spreading on the continent goes, we're an important piece of that because of being the tip of Africa, the ports, and also because of our military and our general influence in the SADC region. So I think we may suffer because we've got a government that's come out in support of Hamas, that's probably taken money from Iran in order to make the case for Hamas.
Yeah. Well, we know that's
Israel.
why they went to the International Criminal Court.
So, and listen, if they've got evidence, which they probably do, because the CIA most likely has that data, if they've got evidence that we actually have taken money from Iran, we will become part of that enemy circle in Trump's head and in his foreign advisors' heads. And
it's important that people know that in America, the president has plenary power for all foreign affairs matters.
So, and this is actually where
he can decide on sanctions, he can decide on wars, he can decide on all these
foreign
things.
Policy is the executive branch.
Yeah.
And that's personally why I'm very keen on having Trump back. The biggest issue is foreign policy. I thought of all the things he did in his first term that are very hard to criticize. You could criticize other things, even the stuff I like, but foreign policy is very difficult to criticize. He did brilliantly in foreign policy. He killed ISIS. ISIS was meant to be a thing that couldn't be killed. He ended ISIS pretty much instantaneously. He sorted out the Iraq issue. Afghanistan, he was in the process of sorting out and pulling out, but keeping the people the Americans had installed instead of the Taliban. So the Taliban would never have gotten back into power. And then he got the Abraham Accords going, which would have ultimately, and I think still could, result in Middle East peace for a very long time. We're talking hundreds of years.
Well, if anything, Israel's victories against Hamas and Hezbollah will probably aid that.
In the end, but it may make some other things more difficult because of the complexity that's now created, which didn't exist before October 7th and everything that's followed. But, we want to rename the road.
Oh, Santon Drive.
Yeah, we want to rename the road in front of the American consulate after a terrorist.
A woman who hijacked a plane.
When Trump hears about that,
Yes.
I don't think he's going to. I think if he's
going to go, oh, well, it's nuanced.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm sure that they have their reasons.
If he's as sort of firebrand as people claim, I don't think that's going to turn out well for us.
No, he's probably going to say, well, fuck them.
Yeah. And so I think in the short term, I think, though, we're quite lucky that, we've got Cyril, who is really a husk of a man and who will go any way the wind blows. And so when the threat from America comes and that telephone call happens,
he'll fall.
we will suddenly drop the case at the international court. We will suddenly shut up and stop wearing kafirs, and
we'll learn to suck cock again.
And the road in front of that embassy will be Santon Drive.
No, it's true.
And that will stay Santon Drive. And that'll be the end of that. So I think in the beginning it could be a bit of pain, but hopefully sanity will prevail.
Jonathan and Gareth, it's like a Marvel crossover. It needs to happen more often, Grant D'Souza. If you like Jonathan Witt, then I would encourage you to check out his podcast with Canton Pillay. It's called the Overton Pod, which is really worthwhile. I'm a regular listener to that, and it's terrific. They sit and break down all kinds of things. And the last episode about changing narratives I thought was fantastic. So, good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, Grant. Cyril is a teleprompter, he says as well. Long term, I think Trump is better for us regarding mining energy, says Signet. The Dems pushing green is not good for our commodities.
Yeah, Trump's better for the world, in my opinion, and for very obvious reasons. Number one is Trump is not against fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are the reason your life is as it is. And all the nice things that exist are because of fossil fuels. Pretty much all plastics and everything in your life comes as a result of fossil fuels. But everyone thinks about obviously fuel in their car and stuff like that. But energy is the way we build civilizations. And the more energy we have, the more we can do, the more prosperity we can have.
And we're a country with lots of oil and coal.
Yes. So the thing is Trump's not going to change our energy policy, but he may change the way the world views energy and the way things are done. He did change the way America viewed energy. So America under Trump the last time.
Are you still looking for nuclear stocks?
Yes, absolutely. So America became a net exporter of fossil fuels. So that was that helped, and that's why the oil price dropped. So, for example, wouldn't you like cheaper fuel in your car?
Of course.
Right? And obviously that fits into food costs and everything else. But yes, then nuclear as well. I noted on Rogan, he's very much a person of that era in which you grew up hiding under a desk because of the nuclear explosion that the Russians were going to set off in your city, because the desk was going to help you, of course. And so he doesn't. The problem is there's a conflation between nuclear bombs
and nuclear
energy, which are not the same thing.
Right.
But if people like Elon and smart people can get into that administration and they move towards nuclear energy, the world will be changed forever. And yes, we will be better off as a result of that. We'll be better off with global stability. If there's no war in Ukraine, we'll be better off. I mean, as you know, every time you go to the shops and there's not something on a shelf, it's because of Ukraine, right? So, of course, everything will just be available there on the shelves. You must remember this. I mean, you remember, of course, we couldn't get LCD screens. You couldn't get wiring harnesses in cars, sunflower oil. I mean, all kinds of, pretty much every item ever known to man came from Ukraine.
Yeah.
But there is some truth to some things that do come from that region, and there certainly are pressures that have been placed on that entire sector. I mean, Germany is collapsing. Germany's collapsing, and that's not good for anyone.
No.
It's been a manufacturing powerhouse.
Because Germany is the euro as well.
Germany is Europe, like it or not.
Yeah.
The reality is they built, post-World War II, they built an absolute powerhouse back into Germany. And they're very, very smart people there. There's a lot of invention, or there traditionally has been. And Germany is failing. And one of the reasons Germany is failing is because of energy.
Yeah. So I just want to stop you before we go down a whole energy discussion here, because we could. I just don't know whether it's today's election results day. I noticed South African opinions are varied as usual. You get very diverse opinions on X, because we're allowed to actually express our opinions now on X.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see how many people in this country have an absolute apoplexy every time you bring up Donald Trump, even though, again, it's like I think he's great and I think he will win and I hope he'll win. And if he does, I'll be happy, but it's not going to change my life forever. And I'm not going to be upset if he doesn't. But there are people already screaming and tearing their hair out, especially in our media. What's that all about?
So, look, I think some people are honest interlocutors here and some people are dishonest. And I have to think that, the honest interlocutors are people who genuinely believe things that are false. But if those things were true, they'd be right to think the things they think about Trump. Okay. Someone engaged me on X the other day and I went into their bio and, they're a master's in international relations and they're doing a PhD, I think, at UCT or something. So clearly a smart person, smart enough that they should be able to pass this information. And they came in and just with a narrative. Trump is a convicted rapist, was what they said to me. And I said, but he's not. He's not. He's not a convicted rapist. Go look at what the finding was, okay? It wasn't a conviction of rape. And then if you really want to go look into that claim and that trial and that lawfare, so to speak, that woman who claimed that he felt her up in a Bergdorf Goodman, I think I've
change room or
whatever. I might have said the name of the place wrong.
No, you're right. But that's the place.
It is the place. So she can't remember the year. She can't remember anything about the timing. She can't remember any specific details. And the story she told resembles a episode of a Law and Order Special Victims Unit almost identically. It's literally lifted out of the script. So it's very obvious what happened there. And by the way, she's not a very well woman. Like she's made, I think, 13 claims of rape in her life against different men. So, but Donald Trump is hated enough in New York for a jury to find against Donald Trump. So, that's the one side of people. People are misinformed.
So,
and then the other side is
sorry to interrupt you. Grant says here, Musk just tweeted game, set, and match. So I don't know what's happened. I'm looking at results, and I'll tell you whether there's any certainty. I think he's 247 to 208, and we need to get to 270. So Trump's at 247, Harris at 208. We still see no results on the table for Minnesota, Nevada. The border states still looking red and blue as far as I can tell. So when I say the border, I mean the states that are still important here in terms of how many electoral college votes they bring in. That would be Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona.
I think Musk is responding to Polymarket, which is the betting markets, which are now predicting that Donald Trump, 90% prediction, according to the betting markets, that Donald Trump wins the election.
Oh, by the way, before we take a break, for anybody who thinks there's too much pro-Republican stuff going on here, we'll speak to my friend Debbie Droke, who's probably not having the most fun night in Washington, D.C. She's a big Democrat. She's a big fan of Kamala. She's been a big fan of Bill Clinton.
She can get her pussy hat out
Barack
again.
Obama. She can knit a new pussy hat. We'll find out just in a short while. I love you, Debbie, and I'm very, very keen to talk to her. I hope she's not crying and she's not too upset at this point. It's still not
if she's
in the bag.
anything less than what Joy Reid is currently doing on MSNBC.
What is Joy Reid doing?
No, she's melting down completely.
You see, that's another person I wish I could watch. Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow.
Yeah, you'll get Rachel Maddow melting down. I mean, Rachel Maddow does a show a week for which she's paid $1 million
every week.
Yeah, and
of course for her, a Trump win would be great for ratings.
Yes, so I mean, this is the thing.
Paradoxically, the best thing that could happen for Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow
and New York Times and the Washington Post, etc.
It makes them relevant again.
Absolutely.
There's no point in them making a noise. And being
resistance.
To. Yeah, so if you feel like Trump's an asshole, which many people do, you'll be addicted to those people for the next couple of years. Anyway, let's see what happens. We're going to speak to Debbie Droke. I've also got another friend of mine popping in from Texas later on. She's going to actually come to the studio. She's not voting in this election, but she will be in the next one. and we'll find out what she thinks. Plenty of good stuff. We want to hear your comments. Join in the conversation. If you're into American politics, then you're probably having a happy time. If you're not, I'm sorry, this is not your favorite show. You'll have to rejoin us on Friday when hopefully by then the dust is settled. We've moved on. Jonathan Witt, our guest in studio today, the Gareth Cliff Show on the Real Network. We're back in a moment.
I'm going to tell you guys a story about a patient of mine. This guy happens to be an IV drug user. Right? He uses heroin. And this guy came prepared, a shoelace in his bag as a tourniquet that he would use as a tourniquet to get his veins, right? And I was failing. I just could not get a vein. This guy was like, nah, let me show you. Pulls this
that's
thing
what
out.
they always, that's
Let
what
me
they always
show
do.
you. He pulls this thing out, went tight. Like, I've never seen an arm go that tight. His arm was swelling up. Managed to find one vein. I want you to look. These veins here. Visiting hours come. It's 3 p.m. This guy says, Doc, I just want to go outside to smoke. Does he not go outside with his friend who came to visit him, who he said was his brother?
To inject.
Brought him heroin to the hospital.
Hey, bruh.
Shoots up in the same drip that I put in for him. Comes back to the ward high. Out of his mind.
He's like, I
high.
got the drip, I'm ready. Yeah.
I'm ready.
Now, what do you guys know about NASCAR?
It goes round and round in circles.
Correct. That's pretty much the first
Indy
rule of NASCAR.
And if you don't chew big red, then you.
So NASCAR literally is it's oval circuits.
I think that's the main thing. Is like, let's just go show.
Yeah.
See how many Bud Lights we can drink before we drive home,
Yeah.
and then go to church on Sunday.
Sometimes consistency is the best play, huh?
All right, good morning and welcome to Wednesday, election results from the US. By the way, quick note to South Africa, because yesterday there was a big Bella protest. Actually,
Yes.
I had one or two friends who went to that.
And
They
then
all-
because there was people wearing orange and
it
people wearing
completely-
blue,
Ferial Haffajee had a meltdown.
of course, that
Ferial
means
Haffajee was like,
apartheid is back, Gareth.
because she's so traumatized, right? Like she's got PTSD, Ferial, that whenever she sees blue and orange and white, she immediately thinks, "Oh my God, the old regime are back."
Yeah.
which is
Well, apartheid held her back so much she became a leading editor in the country.
well. Also, it must be terrible for her when the Metro Police in Johannesburg stop her, because I've noticed that it's orange and blue and white. So Ferial's just
Absolutely.
every time. Maybe
just
does she
crazy.
live in Joburg? I don't know, but if she does, I feel sorry for you, Ferial, and you have my sympathies, because those Metro Police, when they chose those colors, just didn't take into consideration your mental state and the nervousness with which you approach those colors every time you see them. Must be terrible to be so triggered.
Imagine being afraid of color.
Oh, it's horrible. Anyway, the Bella protest, which was about this terrible law.
Terrible,
And by the way,
yeah.
Panyaza Lesufi was melting down too, complaining about how this is, people hate blacks and they hate the ANC, and that's why if you stand against Bella, it must be because you want black children to suffer, and just the most incredible stupidity going on.
I'm not sure the guy who spent like 300 million rand sanitizing a school instead of educating children should really talk about who hates black children.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, that's a good point.
I mean, I know hypocrisy doesn't matter to the left,
But really, Panyaza's got only a small window of opportunity here to make a big mark, and I think he's trying very hard.
he thinks he's going to be up there.
He thinks he might be the next president.
I think it's going to be hilarious when Fikile Mbalula is like the deputy president and Paul Mashatile is the president.
You think?
Yeah, that's probably where it's going to go.
Okay, so there, you've got some bonus South African politics in this morning's show. It wasn't just all about America. Okay, so a lot of people saying here, there goes the English Steve Hofmeyr, Gareth. That's JMP. I'm the English Steve Hofmeyr. So apparently Steve Hofmeyr was at the Bella thing.
Okay.
That was another reason people were melting down.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe he has kids and maybe he cares about education. That would be my first port of
I think
call.
he's got a lot of kids, doesn't he?
He's got kids in every town, apparently. So
I mean,
for him,
I think Steve has been very successful in
state
the
education,
procreation.
and he's not paying private schools for all of them.
No, not a chance. Only the mothers he likes.
Anyway, I'm so sick of our mainstream media also pushing Kamala Harris like they've always pushed the ANC as a savior of South Africa, and all other races the devil, says Moonchild. ANC playing victim again, says Judas. Patrick says, not to mention the whole of the Northern Cape coloured Afrikaans schools, but these idiots try to make Afrikaans racial. Suck it, fools, says Patrick. Sugar says, first time I hear about it on this platform, I'll look into it. Well, okay, good. Look, I don't know enough about this Bella law.
So
I got
on. Some.
You can help me
I've
understand.
got some insight into it. So essentially, it gives complete control to the state over schools. So school governing bodies lose their power.
Now, who would want that?
Well,
Who
it's,
would want-
it's centralizing
who would want
control, right?
Who would want the government that gave us Angie Mochecha to suddenly have 100% of the say about what happens to your children in all those hours that you're not there? In other words, where the state has unopposed access to your child. At the moment, their brain is at the most soft to put nonsense into it, and
Yes.
people want that?
Yeah. So, and also just to control in general how schools operate and function. And
Look, I know we have
and
terrible
all of that
parents
stuff.
in this country. I know we have dissolute and broken down, disastrous catastrophes of parenting in South Africa. I know.
but we also have pockets of excellence in
so-
schooling.
Sure.
And
but they want to destroy
They
both.
want to. They want to. So this will. It's the same thing as NHR, right? It's all centralized. It's all the government must control this particular entity because the government knows best. And in truth, we already know because we've run an A/B test where you can go, what does government education / healthcare look like? What does private education / healthcare look like? On average, which is better? And we know which is better. But the government insists on trying to convince us that government-run stuff will be better. And it obviously isn't. And yeah, it's just these are terrible, terrible bills, and they will do irreparable damage to people in the country. So who knows? Let's see what happens with them.
So don't send your kids to state schools if this is all
But the problem is most people don't have a choice, and private schooling is becoming particularly expensive because
So then the gap between rich and poor will just grow.
absolutely, and
Because rich people will send their kids to better schools, and poor people will have shitty state schools and shitty state health, and poor people will die faster and in greater numbers,
and be
they will
disabled and all the
and
rest
they'll
of
be
it.
less educated, so they'll continue to be poor. And this is what the ANC wants:
Mm.
more inequality.
Yes, so I mean they don't see it that way.
Just
but
clear. I'm just
that's
making sure.
That's what it'll create. That's what it will
This
create.
is what they want. Let's just be clear. This is what Panyaza Lesufi wants. He wants more poor and unhealthy people.
Sure. And I mean, back to America, you see similar issues there with education because they've also got a large teachers union, like we've got SATU. They've also got a large teachers union, and that teachers union has also done incredible damage to education in America by basically always lobbying on behalf of
the
what's
Democrats.
best for the Democrats and their teachers, and not what's best for students and for kids. So,
And that really was tested in COVID, because the teachers union in America wanted to shut down schools.
well, not only wanted to, did, and in fact wanted them to be kept shut down through 2022. So even if you were a big fan of shutting down schools, just consider that. That was 2 years later. They were upset at schools opening in 22. Remember that some Ivy League colleges still have COVID vaccine mandates to today. No one else in the world has that. It always interests me in America that some of the things they do, that they almost forget that, and Americans often get criticized for this, but they forget that there are other places in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
and it's just weird when you see them doing stuff that, for example, mainstream Europe's not doing, that they were doing wrong 2 years ago, but they've stopped because they realized it was stupid.
Yeah.
And the Americans just bulldozer on, carry on.
So, okay, let's just go to the issues here, because I think probably for most people in the world, they're not that invested outside of America in Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. It probably doesn't affect them on a day-to-day basis, like most people are not affected by government on a day-to-day basis. But there are stories and there are ways of dealing with things that go through the world as a result of what happens in this election. It sets an agenda for the world for 4 years. It kind of sets a tone, a direction, and there are going to be things that are now going to be put to pasture or will become less prominent. And you were talking about energy earlier and how even though Trump won't influence the energy policy of a country outside of the US, his way of dealing with things may change the way that governments there think about things and the people of those countries. So what do you think a Kamala victory, should it happen, would mean for all these things that the world has been talking about for the last 4 years? Racial inequalities, diversity, equity, and inclusion, wokeism, transgender bathrooms. I mean, is Kamala going to be a continuation of that? Would she intensify that sort of stuff? She certainly is a believer in things like equity.
Yeah.
Do you think that if she won, those would be prominent things that the world would have to deal with?
Yeah, I think probably. I think she would. I think it would be a continuation. I think those things are all reaching an end point because people are starting to get fed up with them. The transgender stuff, for example, the Europe and the UK have now come out and basically said they're not giving any hormone therapy to kids.
Even Scandinavian countries.
Scandinavian countries.
Big
If you want to read up about it, there's something called the CAS report, and that's now being followed, which is good science, showing that these things damage kids and don't have good outcomes. So America is behind in that, but they will catch up. She may carry on doing that stuff. Look, I think that stuff you can survive because, unfortunately, any kid who gets sort of caught up in that and then has their life destroyed by puberty blockers is unfortunately never going to be the same. But the country as a whole can survive 4 years of that kind of insanity. The country as a whole can survive 4 years or even 8 years, as Barack Obama showed, of being told that you're all racist.
Yeah.
You know, it's possible to survive those types of things.
Let's just be fair. For the first 4 years, he didn't say those things.
Yes. Okay.
Barack
fair.
Obama was the candidate of unity. You know, we're not blue states, not red states, we're the United States. And he said that he thinks that largely we can put away some of these race things. He's first black president and so on.
Yep.
But he did change his tune in 2012.
Yeah,
And it was a different sort of
He started
presidency.
moving even before then, but sure, the second term was really where that stuff accelerated, and then obviously by the time Hillary was running, it really was full blown. That was the sort of birth of Black Lives Matter and
Right.
all of these sort of entities pushing race politics. But again, I think you can probably survive some of those things. They obviously create division in your society, and they're not healthy for any society. We know this in South Africa. I mean, News 24 just cannot help but push race all the time. They see it in everything. And I think people are waking up to that, which is great. The things you can't survive is kind of a nuclear holocaust. So
That's quite a big problem.
So, I think that those are the things that worry me more with a Kamala Harris presidency. An economy that keeps failing, where
You think we'd
inflation
end up
becomes.
in a nuclear holocaust? How?
I think we are way.
Sounds
and
a bit
I'm
extreme.
not. Yes, and I'm not particularly a fear-mongering doomsday type of person, which is why I could never get down with COVID, because that's what we were told. We were all going to die, right? Sure. And it was a complete lie. But the problem is we're way too close at the moment to war that could escalate into something uncontrollable.
You mean in Ukraine? You mean in the Middle East?
I mean both.
Yeah.
I mean both. And the problem is that the Democrats do not want to de-escalate Ukraine, and the Russians do not care to keep escalating it. And the Russians are now allied with the Chinese. And the Chinese are allied with the North Koreans. And the North Koreans are not stable. The leader of that country is not a stable human being, right? And he has nuclear weapons. And China has nuclear weapons. And Russia has more nuclear warheads than any other country on Earth, including the United States. And they're probably better taken care of, because in the United States, they haven't looked after them.
Are you saying that Trump would get on the phone and say, I'm friends with Kim. I'll just talk to Kim. I'll have a conversation.
Look,
he remembers me from when we walked across the border. It was beautiful.
I'll make a prediction now. If Trump wins, the issues in Ukraine, Russia are resolved within 6 months of him taking office. So from January to July. And the issues in the Middle East are resolved by the first year of him having taken office. And that's important, because that actually, you may never be impacted by what the transgender policy on bathrooms is in the United States. But if people start lobbing nuclear warheads at each other, or even if they don't do that, but they just go to traditional war with each other, if there is a war between Europe, America, and Russia, China, and it's a third world war, and even remove the nukes from the equation, that is a terrible thing to live through. And those of us who have grandparents that fought in those wars know that, because ask them. There was hardly any food. There was hardly any stuff you could buy. There was nothing at the shops. Life was about one thing and one thing only, and that was about trying to contribute to that war effort so that you could win, so that things could go back to normal.
And survive.
And why do we need to go back to that? It just seems silly to go, and everyone knows it's dumb.
So if you were in America, what would be your main reason to vote for Trump then?
I think if I was in America, the economy, which is coming out as the top issue in exit polling, the economy would be my number one issue. Same as if as a South African voter, economic growth is my number one issue. The party that can cause economic growth brings this country out of poverty. They change everything. And so I think in the States, it's the same story. If you fix the economy, you fix a lot of other issues. So that would be the first thing. I think the foreign policy matters. I think Americans, and polling shows this, they're tired of the so-called forever wars. They've had enough of fighting conflicts all over the world that they don't see a reason to fight. And they've had enough of spending money externally when it seems as if their country doesn't have enough money to do things internally. So I can imagine it's very frustrating as an American, because I know this as a South African. It's very frustrating to drive on a road with potholes and then go over a highway bridge and look at that bridge. Now, I mean, do this. Next time you drive over
there was
one of those...
that collapsed in Durban yesterday.
Yes. So next time you drive... Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. At the old airport in the Manzimtoti, the bridge collapsed over the highway.
Oh, okay. So I keep looking at those bridges over the highway in Joburg and thinking to myself, it's looking a bit tatty. And I don't know if anyone serviced this in the last 20 years. And there's not tons you have to do to concrete, but you do have to look after it. And you do have to maintain it. And I don't think that's happening. So I look at all of this stuff and I go, well, I'm bothered by that. Now, if you also told me that South Africa was sending out billions or even trillions of rands every year to make sure that the people in, name a country,
Azerbaijan,
can whatever, be able to fight the people in wherever else.
Armenia.
Thank you.
For the sake of some
Azerbaijan and Armenia are suddenly at war. But if you talk, I'd be annoyed. I'd be bothered by that. And Americans are. That's what the polling shows.
Well, I mean, luckily for us, we know some Americans, and one of my friends lives in Washington, D.C., And I am sure that she is watching all the exit polls as they happen. I'm absolutely convinced that she went to vote. She most certainly voted for a Democrat, and that would be Kamala Harris. And I know that she's begrudgingly speaking to me because it's late at night in America right now. Is Debbie on the line? There she is, the great Debbie Droke.
here
Look
I
at
am.
you.
Look at me.
I miss you.
How are
How are
you?
you?
I miss you too, Gareth. We keep on missing each other when I'm in South Africa. And Jonathan, you look rather familiar from 4 years ago.
Indeed, Debbie. I was wrong 4 years ago.
You
Let's
couldn't
see
get
if I'm wrong
anyone
again.
else on, right?
Well, you know what? He admitted he was wrong 4 years ago. Some people would say Trump didn't. But how are you feeling about this election, Debbie? And I haven't
Okay, just
you and I haven't
hold on.
spoken. You and I haven't spoken politics for such a long time. Oh, you're wearing a Kamala Harris shirt. Who knew?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
I was
Put
at
that
the
full
rally
screen.
last week.
Okay, so tell me what's been going on in Washington. How you're feeling? You voted, obviously.
Oh, of course. Of course I voted.
Where's your sticker, Debbie?
It's upstairs. I could go up and get it. Trust me. Trust
okay.
me. Voted early. I'm cautiously optimistic, and right now I'm looking at it. It's like I'm looking at my phone. Kamala has 209 electoral votes, and Trump has 230. So I want to. Are you still there? I can't.
I'm listening.
Yeah, we're
I'm
listening.
listening. We're listening to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't want to interrupt
So-
you.
Oh gosh, don't interrupt me. Not like last time, right? A lot of the precincts haven't come in that are mostly blue. So again, we were told not to get too nervous because a lot of the smaller precincts have already come in. But I'm a little nervous, and I'm listening to what the polls say. I was hearing Jonathan talk and you talk about what America is doing wrong. And of course, I don't agree with everything.
Of course.
I just, it's, I don't agree with, what you're saying about Ukraine and a nuclear holocaust. I do worry about that. I really do. And Gareth, I'm definitely a Democrat, but I'm also very much of a hawk. So we lived in Berlin, as you know, during the occupation and the fall of the wall and reunification.
That's right.
And if Ukraine is taken over, then the next one is Poland. It's not like Putin is going to stop. So, and then there goes Europe. So I am really worried about it. I think that,
Deb,
you know,
when you talk to your neighbors, I mean, you're in Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Technically,
I'm
you're
in
not.
Virginia. Yeah, I'm about
technically, you're
12
not in the
miles from
District of
DC.
Columbia, right? So,
yeah.
so when you were talking to your neighbors, when you were in the line to vote, what are people really worried about, or is it very tribal? Because we look at America from miles and miles away, and I see a very fractured country. I see a huge amount of division. And I love America. You know how I feel. I don't.
do.
I don't
I know
really.
that.
I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I would prefer that America did well. I would like to see America do well in the world. I'd like to see American influence spread throughout the world. I think it's a good thing. But America looks to me like a very fractured place. What are your
It is fractured.
What are your neighbors saying? What do you care the most about in this election? What's motivating people to go to the polls or to stay at home?
So a lot of people are staying home. A lot of the young people, and Daniela and I have had so many conversations about this, is what's going on in the Middle East, which is a very complicated. I don't at all. It's such a complicated story. But a lot of the young people are very upset with Netanyahu continuing to, commit genocide with the Palestinians. And there's a very fine line in, wanting, I mean, of course, Israel needed to defend itself, but at the same time, he's had many opportunities to have a ceasefire and come to the table. And I think he's politically motivated because, in my opinion, he's in the same boat as Trump, that if he's out of office, they're going to try to send him to jail. So I think it's politically motivated, but the young people here, not all of them, but a lot of them feel really that it's not worth voting or voting for a third party, which to me is voting for Trump. People, women, and I'm hoping it comes out, are very upset about having our bodies taken over by old men making these decisions that, I marched about 50 years ago when Roe v. Wade was overturned. It's not even about choosing to have an abortion. It's about a woman miscarrying and not being able to get medical attention because she has to be sepsis and almost dying in order to help her. I mean, where are we? Like, what is
I mean, I
wrong
can
with
tell you
us?
from a medical opinion perspective, that's complete misinformation. No doctor won't help you. And the woman you're referring to took an abortion pill, which she got, and then ignored her symptoms for days, and then presented very late to hospital and was helped. So
There are
and there's
so
a
many
difference. There's a difference between
please.
abortion and miscarriage, and
No,
those terms are
there
different.
is a difference between abortion and
And those terms are
miscarriage.
different because they're
And
different things.
Please, you're incorrect. There are women dying in the United States right now because medical professionals are afraid that they're going to lose their license or they're going to go to jail. And
Where's
one
the precedent
story
for that?
about an abortion pill is not going to, is not going to happen.
Yeah, but
with me.
these are fever dreams. It's the same as the stuff about the Middle East. You talk about a genocide, but the population has grown. You talk about Netanyahu having a chance for a ceasefire, yet Hamas has had more than 365 days to release the hostages, which you don't mention.
I agree.
It's
I
all
agree
these
with you there.
narrative sort of traps. I'm not really interested in the narrative traps. I'm interested in the reality. Like, you're a real person who's got real concerns about your country. And, the reality is that surely you can see that there would be some positive aspects to a Trump presidency as against a Kamala one.
Absolutely
and I'm sure
not.
for
No,
your perspective.
that's
Okay.
your narrative, not
Let's
mine.
hear that. So
That's
you
your
reckon? Okay.
narrative.
So this is the other thing I want to ask you. So let's imagine Kamala wins tonight. Then you can wear your shirt tomorrow, and it'll be celebrations because DC's all boarded up, as I understand it.
Oh, it's really sad. I mean, yeah. I mean, when I was
Why
there
is it
last
boarded
week,
up, Debbie?
we
Why?
started
Why is
boarding
it?
up.
Is it because the Republicans are coming to do another January the 6th? Is that why they've boarded it up?
No, they're afraid that if Kamala does win,
Oh.
that there will be massive riots, and people will, they'll.
But
If Kamala does
Yeah,
win,
probably another. If Kamala wins, I don't see a bunch of Democrats going into riot if Trump wins. I really don't. But if Kamala wins, I think there's going to be a lot of political unrest. And I believe that, everyone's got their lawyers set up to go in and contest if
Yeah.
Kamala does win.
and
hate
what'll
to think of
happen?
what's gonna happen.
What'll happen if Trump wins?
Well, again, I think that, there might be some, I don't
It's for
believe,
protests.
I don't believe that there will, well, there might be some, but nothing like if Kamala, nothing like
I
if
just don't
Trump
know where the
wins.
Republicans in DC would come from. I mean, 90% of DC votes for votes for Kamala, or voted for Biden. They'll probably vote the similar way for Kamala. So why would the places in DC be concerned when the majority of them are Democrats? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. Also,
If
I mean,
Kamala
of all
wins,
the riots,
if Kamala wins,
of all, yeah, I don't. I mean, I think.
I think people will come in and protest all over the United States.
Where will they come from?
think-
Will they be bussed like Democrats bust their supporters around?
So there's nothing wrong with Democrats busing their supporters around to go in and canvass.
I mean, they
and
are
that's what
they have been
democracy is
fans
all
of busing
about.
since they
But
bust
let's-
black children around.
No, there's nothing wrong with busing in. I'm sorry, what did you just say about busing children?
Well, the Democrats, as you know, had that failed racist policy many years ago, which Kamala actually called Joe Biden racist over, if you remember the 2020
the
primaries. But yeah, I think I think that's an interesting take, because if of all the riots we've seen over the last 8 years, the ones that took place just before the 2016 elections, that happened in Democrat cities by Democrats, and then
The George Floyd riots.
the
in
George Floyd
2020.
riots in 2020, and the burning down of large swathes of Minneapolis and other small towns.
George
Those were
Floyd
Democrats.
is a totally different subject.
But it wasn't
I mean, that
Republicans
has nothing
rioting, Debbie. It was Democrat voters.
Yeah, no. There were a lot of people that that did stoke the fire of these riots, and a lot of them were Republicans. So I mean, look, not all of us are innocent in what a lot of people do. Do I believe in rioting? No, absolutely. Do I believe in putting your whole community on fire and tearing it down? No, not at all. But let's just go back to what would happen if Trump did win.
Let's do that.
He's told us who he is, so we should believe him.
Okay.
And what scares me is that in 2016, when he won, people obviously did not like Hillary, even though she won by 3 million votes. The electoral votes gave it to her. Gave it to him, and I understand that. That's another.
Don't
whole
be an
subject.
election denier now, Debbie.
No,
Come
I'm
on.
not being an election
not.
denier, but she did win by 3 million votes. And if Trump won by 3 million votes and Kamala got the electoral, I would be very happy about that. So that's just another whole subject. However, what about what Trump says he's doing? It's total retribution. He says things about he wishes the generals were more like Hitler.
No, Debbie, sorry, correction.
yes, he
One
did.
person said
He
no.
did.
There were
He
at
said
least
that
5 people in the
himself.
room. There were at least 5 people in the room. One person says he said that, and 3 people have come on record to say he never said that. So, it's fine. You can believe the one person. I'm okay for you to believe
that,
the
Kelly?
one.
I will believe
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
When
General
has
Kelly.
I believe the 3. So
General
that's okay.
Kelly,
Yeah, General Kelly, who's a partisan. So, and has been a partisan since he wrote an anti-Trump book the minute he was fired from his position.
What about General Milley, who never came out?
General
on
Milley, the guy who
anything?
supports transgender people having
What's wrong with that?
having
What's wrong with that?
the taxpayer,
wrong
the
with
military,
What
and the
is wrong
taxpayer
with that?
paying for people to become transgender in the military.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
I have a problem with that. So
Well,
that's
I don't. I mean, as
there
an
you go.
American, I don't.
But you,
I
you,
don't.
you
I
see,
mean,
you want to
that's
hold
what
up Millie.
that's what social medicine is all about.
Social
I've
medicine.
been-
What's social medicine?
Well, I've been on social medicine my whole life. My dad was a sergeant in the Air Force, and then I married a military man.
Oh, you're talking
And
about
I have- and it's where-
taxpayer-funded medicine, single payer.
Well, I'm talking about socialized medicine. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's a
I
lot
think
wrong
there's
with it.
nothing
It's
wrong with
collapsing
that.
all
Sorry,
over the world.
but I want to go
But
back
let's
to
get
we're
back to
talking
America.
about
So you were saying
transgender.
So you were saying like he said, and Jonathan disputes this, and I think the facts are gathered more on his side, but that's a discussion for another time. That he
It
will
is.
he
It
wants
is.
his generals to be more like Hitler's generals.
Where they only
what like
they
von
only-
Ribbentrop and those guys. Anyway, I mean, the point is whether or not he said this worries you.
It does worry me. And other things worry me. How about Project 2025? What he said about internment camps? The whole Heritage
Project-
Foundation.
So
Project
he has said
2025.
he's said very clearly that he does not associate with
Oh,
Project
that's
2025.
such bullshit.
He's never seen it. You don't believe any of that? You think he's
No,
actually, that's his real
absolutely
agenda?
not. I mean, they didn't even put out a book because they didn't realize that Vance was going to be the nominee for vice president,
Mm-hmm.
and he did a forward for Project 2025, the book, and it hasn't come out yet because of that, because of the controversy.
Okay, so what
he has been-
what in Project 2025 would worry you the most?
Assuming it represents him, even though he has personally gone on record saying, I
Yeah,
disavow.
let's put that aside for a
oh,
second.
come on.
Yeah.
He's such a friggin' liar. Are you kidding me? He would personally disavow his own wife if she was a threat to his, getting the presidency. I mean, come on. How could you believe anything that Trump
Okay, so
says?
what's in it? What's in it that really bothers you? Assuming we're
the
following this.
internment camps.
Internment camps for who?
Rounding everyone up. Rounding everyone up. The
Who's everyone?
immigrants.
Well, who?
Well,
Illegal
all
immigrants.
all the supposedly illegal immigrants. Look, when you look like me, and you have the Stephen Millers of the world that are in charge of this.
Stephen Miller, the
I mean,
Jewish Nazi. That guy.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
No, just
he
checking.
is Jewish, and oh, come on.
I'm just checking. I'm just checking we've got our things straight.
Come on.
A
Don't,
Jewish
no.
Nazi.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's a very Jewish man, and he's a Nazi. Trump also being the
Well-
grandfather of Jewish kids.
Yeah.
So Stephen Miller is a despicable man who happens to be Jewish. And, Jews were complicit also during the Nazi regime. But you have
Sure,
a
Debbie.
president.
Okay.
Look, okay, so he wants internment camps.
Okay.
What else? It's
Okay.
12 midnight.
I'll tell you
I'm
what,
sorry.
because no,
Yeah.
you're not. I can't hold you up as the person who's responsible for all Democrats, and I'm sure that someone in the
No, I
Kamala
know that.
campaign, so I'm not, and certainly I don't want to have you here and make this unpleasant because I haven't spoken to you in such a long time, and we're talking
Oh
about
no, we haven't.
your country's
spoken.
election. So how do you think? Go on.
Go ahead. No, go on.
How do you
Go
think?
ahead. Ask your question.
How do you think the Americans who are voting Trump can be from the same country as you are and think so differently about things?
I don't know. I don't.
Are you because famously you and your husband Bill and I used to have conversations about how bipartisan Washington used to be, about how people used to get along, about how
Absolutely.
a Democrat and a Republican could get together and talk about stuff without
Absolutely.
accusing each other of being Hitler and the devil and Nazis and God knows what else.
No, you're right. You're
and
right.
low
You're
IQ,
right.
frankly, I mean, that's what Trump calls Kamala, very low IQ. So do you think it's possible, whoever wins this election, do you think it's possible Americans will sort out their shit and actually become friends again? Or do you think it's just going to get worse?
So I think with Kamala, she says that she will have people in her own cabinet and that she will work across the aisle. I think with Trump, it's pure retribution. He's going to go after all the people that said bad things about him. He's an egotistical maniac. The thing that scares me about Trump, it's not necessarily Trump. It's the terrifyingly competent people that it surrounds him.
So yeah, this is a good point. Like, don't you?
Yeah.
I would have thought you would have been someone who might be very keen on Bobby Kennedy. I mean, Bobby Kennedy.
Oh God.
You're not, right?
Are you talking about JFK Jr.?
RFK.
RFK.
RFK Jr. Yeah. I don't refer to him as Bobby Kennedy. I understand. No, he terrifies the hell out of me. He's going to be
Why?
in charge of health. He's going to be in charge of health. I mean, he does. He's just what, cut off the head of something and put it in Central Park, and he has a worm in his head, and he's going to get rid of the CDC and all these and be in charge of health. Like, that's ridiculous. He has absolutely no competency in that.
Well,
no,
Debbie,
why
I
would
mean, in fairness, a lot of the people in charge of health completely screwed up COVID. I'm sure you accept there were some mistakes made at least during that time.
Yeah,
Rachel
I agree there
Walensky,
were some
I mean,
mistakes
let's go
made,
look at the things
especially
she
when
did.
Trump was in
Fauci.
power. Absolutely, there was a lot of mistakes made.
More people died
And
from COVID under Biden than Trump. So let's just get that straight
uh,
in America.
Biden inherited that. And, while
So all-
Putin, while he was giving Putin the vaccinations that we needed, come
No,
on.
he
No.
allegedly
And he wants to
gave
put
Putin
chlorine
he
in
allegedly
you
gave
to,
Putin two
maybe you can
injections.
stick chlorine.
Two injections did
No.
not destroy America.
I didn't hear about two. I think it was a bit more than that.
Well,
you
the
know,
allegation is that he personally gave Putin injections for Putin, which is a thing that world leaders
Right.
would do for each other because
Oh,
it's,
give me a
it's,
break.
yes,
Yeah,
it's
give
called
me a break.
diplomacy.
But diplomacy
yes,
on our
absolutely.
staunch enemy?
Absolutely.
No way.
No
way.
Sorry.
I would have rathered him given the vaccine to Zuma and his staff than to
Okay,
than
Debbie,
to Putin.
Debbie,
trust me.
as a military wife and the daughter of a military man,
Yeah.
you said you're a hawk earlier, but wouldn't
Yeah, I am.
you like less Americans to have to be involved in wars? Won't you at least give Trump credit for having no wars during his administration?
Nobody wants wars. Absolutely none. But I really believe that he thought, Putin thought that that he would have been elected in 2020, and I think he did everything that he could, Putin, to get him elected in 2020. And when he didn't, he went ahead and invaded Ukraine. But he's so in bed with Putin. I don't think Putin is scared of him. I think he laughs at him, as all the other dictators do.
But you've got a vegetable. You've got a vegetable in charge of the U.S. at the moment. Your president right now is a demented old age home patient, and that's preferable.
I believe we do. No, I do believe we. I think again, I've met Joe Biden. I've spent time with him.
He doesn't remember.
He probably doesn't. He probably doesn't. But I will tell you that first debate. Trust me, I know about this.
Did he smell your hair? Did he smell your hair and like?
Oh, stop
You're
it!
too old for him.
But he's a very, in Italian, he's very simpatico. So what
Okay.
you consider weird, I mean,
Yeah.
I consider just a really simpatico man.
All right.
But I do believe that we did make a mistake. And I guess people, the majority of the Democrats that made these decisions felt that nobody could beat Trump but Biden. And, if we had had our act together, we would have probably selected someone. And so there wouldn't be this controversy of just giving it to Kamala because it was so late in the game.
Right.
And, she had 100.
By the way, I mean, I
she had
haven't
100
asked you.
days
I
to
haven't,
get her shit together.
so I haven't asked you this. Yeah, she has only had 100 days, but she's been vice president for 4 years, and apparently all she
And I
did was
think she was
all
really
she did.
working
She was
in-
great as vice president.
Well, no. So I think that they silenced her during the Biden administration, and they were going to give her more of a voice if he made it, this time. And she worked a lot in the background. She went to over 150 countries. I mean, she
And
did
made
a lot that
zero
we didn't
impact
know
by the
about.
sound of things. Okay, but
So-
hang on. I want to give you a fair chance here because you voted for
Yeah.
Kamala. So I wanted to
Of course I
ask you
did.
this because this is always the missing part of the puzzle for me. It's like, what do you really like about Kamala Harris? Let's not talk about Donald Trump because I understand many people will be voting for Kamala just because they really can't stand Donald Trump. And I get
Well,
that.
we're afraid for our democracy is the reason why we want to vote
Your
for Kamala.
democracy will be fine. Your bureaucracy is done.
So thousands and thousands of federal workers are going to be just taken off the map. That's
Wonderful.
what he wants to do.
Isn't that great,
Yeah,
though?
no,
That'll cost you
no,
less
it's not.
tax. Think about
Oh
how
my God.
efficient the
It's
government
not all
will be.
about the money, though. It's not. I have many friends that are voting Trump because they're, quite well-to-do. They own small businesses, large businesses, and they're doing it just for the taxes. I think that there's more to America than, saving money. I really do.
But why
what
would
do I like?
are you saying you would want a big inefficient government? That you think that's a good thing?
I don't. Again, I don't think any government is efficient. But I would rather have somebody like Kamala at the helm than this egotistical maniac.
Okay, so get
that
to
is
that.
just
Okay,
a
so
figurehead.
I get you. I just want to know why. What about Kamala is interesting and great? I don't want to hear like anti-Trump because I get that and I
okay,
understand
okay.
it. What do you like
No,
about Kamala?
okay.
Like, what are you waiting
Well,
for?
number
Like,
one, she's a Democrat. Number two, I think that she will. There will be no retribution. I think she'll start at day one, and she will. She will. I think she will try to be bipartisan. I believe that she will protect women's rights. I believe that she will put into federal law a woman's right to choose.
You
I
can't do that
believe that-
legally. It's
Oh, come on,
unconstitutional.
yeah.
It's unconstitutional.
well-
The Congress cannot make that law. It will be struck
You
down
know-
by the Supreme Court.
Okay.
It's
Yes,
unconstitutional.
which has been stacked. The Supreme Court.
It's
has been
irrelevant. It's
stacked, and-
irrelevant. So is
and
she going to
that's
pack
Mitch
it?
McConnell. So I also believe that we will get the voters' rights in there.
like which
You know-
voters? Like who's
well,
not? Who's being prevented from voting?
I believe that a lot of the districts have been gerrymandered in order to go toward Republicans. I believe that there has been a lot of districts and laws that have put into place that would, to the detriment of some areas where people cannot vote because it's in a different, how do
Kind
I
of a
say it?
voting
There-
district jurisdiction. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, but both parties have
you
been
know, but
both parties have been
this is-
gerrymandering the hell out. And that's why we've got these
I-
battleground states, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Michigan, Pennsylvania. These guys have got
And
to
you
get
know,
their
I
act
haven't
together.
been looking. I mean,
Yeah.
what's going on? Have you got the?
So the latest
yeah.
we've got, you got the numbers?
Well, Georgia's been called.
So Georgia,
officially.
okay, yeah, Georgia's been called
And-
for Trump.
for Trump?
Yeah, 50.8% of the vote. I'm looking at the total electoral college numbers now. Harris 213, Trump 248.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
But look, Debbie,
And-
the reality is that none of the blue wall states have reported, and Arizona nor Nevada have reported. And as you know,
Right.
if whichever candidate,
It's
if she holds the blue
Pennsylvania,
wall, she wins.
Michigan, Nevada, Arizona,
And Wisconsin.
So until that is called, and yes, Wisconsin. You're
So
right.
those are the five
So-
that actually matter,
I
in
just
my
love
opinion.
how you say the reality is. It's your reality, Jonathan. It's not
It's
mine.
everyone's reality. You know, Debbie, the thing...
That was my reality. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, that is my reality too. I'm waiting for that. But the rest is all your reality. And I just really burns me up when you negate women's right to choose. And
Debbie, I'm for abortion.
yeah, well, very good.
So what do you mean
I'm
do I
glad
negate
that you
women's
said
right
that.
to choose?
Well,
I'm
you
for-
were talking about.
Just-
well, I'm glad you're for abortion, and you know what? I'm really happy
But-
that
but-
South Africa
but
has
I-
the women's right to choose.
Well, South Africa
So-
would not tolerate the laws that exist in California and New York for abortion. Those would be illegal and you'd be arrested. Okay,
And
let's just
what-
make that
and
clear.
what is that? What are those laws? That, as Trump said, which is
In
as
South
a
Africa,
doctor,
in
know
South Africa,
that
you
you
can-
can have an abortion at 9 months. That's the
South-
stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Well, you can,
So you
Debbie.
tell me.
But you can do
But
that
you
in
can
do
New
that.
York and California. You can.
You
No,
can,
that's
and let's not
bullshit.
go as
That
far
is
as 9 months, Debbie.
That
Let's
would
just
be
go
murder.
to
That
let's
would
just
be
go
murder.
to 28
You're telling
weeks.
me that at
Yeah.
9 months,
Yes.
someone can have a baby
Yes, they can.
and they can kill it. That is simply not true. Simply not true.
It is
But
true.
I'm glad that you are for a woman's right to choose. So as a doctor,
I am
you
for
tell
that limited
me,
right, but I also think it should be what Hillary Clinton said it should be, which is safe, legal, and rare. I do not believe, as per the Democrats now, that you should, in inverted commas, celebrate your abortion. I think that is abominable.
there is no nobody that will celebrate their abortion. If
It's
you ever
literally a
had to
trend on
choose-
social media amongst
no,
Democrats,
I
Debbie.
don't give a shit about what's a trend on social media.
Okay.
When you have to make that choice, it is it's a very difficult decision to make. If you don't believe in abortion, don't have it. But don't give me that right. Don't say that I don't have that right to control my
But
body.
you do have that right, Debbie, in
I
all
do have
states
that
except
right.
two.
When?
In
all states except two currently. You have that
For
right.
6 weeks, when most of it is 6 weeks.
No,
when
no,
you
that's
don't
one
even know
state that you're referring to
pregnant?
that has a 6 week thing, and pretty much everyone else has veered away from that. So pretty much
No,
the
no,
most
you
of
give me
most
the
of your
states
most
that-
of your fellow Americans believe you should be where Europe is, which is where South Africa is, which is that you cannot have an abortion beyond 15 weeks. Now in America
13
that's not
weeks for South
codified
Africa,
properly.
actually, but
Sorry?
there's extenuating no, I just looked it up. South Africa, it's 13 weeks, but there are extenuating circumstances.
It's not
A
actually 13
woman's-
weeks on your Google search. It's 16 anyway, and it's up to 20 with doctor's motivation. And then the only time it can happen beyond 20 weeks if it's a danger to the mother's life, which would never
Exactly.
be justified psychologically, which is in the New York law. So if a mother psychologically cannot cope with the idea of having a baby,
New
they
York
can
law.
terminate
What
the
about,
baby.
What about Louisiana? What about Mississippi? What about
Yeah.
Kentucky? No, Kentucky, they just gave a right for abortion.
Yeah, Kentucky
There
voted
are
for
Yeah,
that.
so
Kentucky's
many
fine with
states-
abortion
Yeah,
now.
no, I know. Kentucky, Kansas,
I said
Florida
all
just
states
lost.
except two. And then Florida has a 6 week.
Okay, but how is this the best thing that Kamala can offer? Is like, I'll restore
The
your right
best
to
thing.
kill your kid.
Stop it,
I mean,
Gareth,
how is this the
stop it.
best? Is
How-
this the
that's
best thing
what a
she's
man
got?
would say. That's
No, okay.
what a man would
so,
say.
So
That is what a man would
I
say.
asked you. Well, I'm
And
a
it's
man.
not
What am I going to
only
say?
that.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm a man.
well,
I'm
that
gonna
you
complain about
you
this.
can
Listen,
you
how is I asked you, and I mean, this is an interesting point, right? I said, what is it about Kamala? And you said
that's
the
my this
woman's
is
right
my
to woman's right to choose. Great. Okay, so that's her one.
absolutely.
That's what she's got, and that's largely what people will say she's campaigned hard on, right? And I wonder if it's had the
Yes,
effect
but
that it
she's
should have.
also she's also talked about a ceasefire. Trying to promote that, other than Trump
Depends.
just saying,
It depends because
go ahead and do what you have to
No,
do.
no, no. I'm not. Listen, I'm not fighting with you. I just want to say that the Democrats' ad in Michigan was different to the Democrats' ad in Pennsylvania. The advert that they put on in Michigan was, "I'm looking for a ceasefire," because she wants to appeal to the
because
Muslim
Israel's
voters
bad,
there.
etc., etc.
Right. She's got people like
Absolutely.
Ilhan
There's
Omar over
100,000
there.
Palestinians there. Absolutely.
Right, and in
Sure.
Pennsylvania, she needs some Jews.
come
so
on, it's
she
still
said,
political.
you know, this thing, we've got to support Israel's right to exist.
Actually, what a lot of people were really pissed off about is that she wouldn't address it, and then toward the end, she addressed it.
No, she
So,
did. We still
I
don't know
mean,
where she stands.
I'm not happy with her. I think she should have addressed it at the very beginning, that she
Okay.
will look for a ceasefire versus Trump saying to Netanyahu, you just finished the job. Basically, is
Yeah,
what
that's
he said.
that's my position too.
Isn't that a hawk position?
I'd like that position. I'd like
Well,
him to
I mean,
completely finish
I'm
Hezbollah
really-
and his
I
Hamas.
am really, Jonathan, I am really, I am torn by that because what
Yeah.
happened, and on October 7th, where over 1,000 people were killed, is unbelievable. And of course, Israel and we need Israel politically, in the Middle East as our allies. But even that aside, they have a right to defend themselves. But I'm torn where I think that he had a lot of opportunities for a ceasefire and to get the hostages. And
Okay.
look,
Can I just interrupt this this
Yeah.
foreign affairs discussion? As much as I'm loving it, you two could talk about this in your spare time. I'll give you each other's numbers.
Jonathan, I think we should meet in person and have a cup
Debbie.
of
No,
coffee.
when you're in South Africa, with pleasure.
No, I will. I'll organize. Next time Debbie's here, we're all going for dinner. Debbie,
You owe me dinner from like 4
I
or
do.
5 years ago.
I know. I'm sorry, and I will repay it. I don't want you saying
we were
I lie
supposed to
like
meet
Trump.
up in Cape Town.
so
Or
here it
taking
is.
you to court for no reason.
you'll be next thing. There'll be lawfare from Debbie Droke.
You'll be sent to jail for
right.
a
I've been
bad
running that dinner
accounting
for a long
document.
Retribution. Okay, so Debbie,
Retribution, right?
Debbie,
I'm gonna kick your ass,
who do you think is going to have the biggest meltdown on TV? Will it be Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow? Will it be the Fox guys?
My heroes.
Will
you mean
it be
if
Greg
Kamala wins?
Gutfeld? I mean, who's going to have? Let's say Kamala wins. Who do you think
Yeah.
will have the worst day or night of their life besides obviously Donald Trump? Who's going to be beating
I don't know.
themselves
I don't
up for
really-
weeks?
Yeah, I think we all listen to who we want to. That's part of our problem with, cable networks is that we're in a silo. So I have also, I'm big at MSNBC. I have total crush on
I'd never
Rachel.
have guessed.
Yeah, I know. I do listen to CNN. I love my Cooper. But there is a new network out called is it News Nation?
Yeah, News
I
Nation with
believe.
Cuomo's
Yeah.
on News Nation.
Yeah, all the people that got fired from Fox and from MSNBC and CNN, and I believe that they are less biased. So I try to listen to Fox sometimes. I just can't. I want to throw up. I think that Kamala did a great job. It's a shame. It is such a shame that
Where
we
did
come
she
to
do
this
it?
in
Just hang on.
America.
You just said she did a great job.
With Brett Baer. She's
tell me
saying
He did a
with
great
Brett Baer.
job
Oh,
with
with
Brett
Brett-
Baer. Yeah,
oh,
that's what
okay.
I meant. Yeah,
Okay.
with Brett Baer. She really
I was
did
trying
a
to
good
think,
job.
like,
And
where
I mean,
did she
he-
ever do a good job? I'm just trying to.
No, come on.
With
come on.
Willie,
Look,
she did a
she
good
was
job.
silenced during the administration. I really do. I think she did a lot of great things. We never heard about it.
Well,
And,
maybe it was maybe that was a
know,
good idea
I'm
because
in
when
this-
she opens her mouth, we don't know what the hell she's talking about.
Oh, I mean, how can you say that when Trump opens his mouth and starts talking about sharks and electric boats and
They're eating the
windmills
dogs.
and
They're eating the
come on.
cats.
Yeah, they're eating the cats. I mean, give me a break. Okay, and you're talking about Kamala that she doesn't say
Listen,
anything?
Trump sat on Rogan for 3
Oh my
hours and
God.
spoke in depth about DC, about foreign policy, about tariffs, about taxation.
Hang on. I just want to tell you, Debbie, I want to thank you and your fellow Americans for entertaining the hell out of me for the last, I don't know, this feels like the longest campaign
This is the best
season.
season of America so
In
far.
Aren't
history.
you exhausted?
I
Like,
mean,
what are we going to do
am
if
I
Trump
exhausted?
didn't exist anymore?
Imagine
we
how
are
these
exhausted.
imagine how these candidates feel. And
Oh
by
my
the
God,
way,
I
Debbie,
know.
where were you? Were you by any chance in Butler, Pennsylvania, around 2 months
The
ago?
13th of July.
No, let me tell you, I would have had well, no,
Were
I
you
can't
on a
say that.
roof?
Were you sitting on a roof in Butler, Pennsylvania, with a sniper rifle?
No, but I even know Republicans have said it was a bad shot. So and not that I'm wishing him dead. Not wishing him dead.
I
But,
hope not, Debbie.
you
that
know,
would be
that
terrible.
stupid
That would be
little
very, very
white
much
thing
worse
that
than
he-
calling
Debbie, can
someone
I?
out.
Can I? I
No,
think we're
no,
going to
no.
have to call it soon. But I'm gonna ask if you do me a favor, so that when we meet, I'm gonna ask if you can write down like 10 things, which I'm sure you'll easily be able to do. 10 things that you think Trump is going to do. So, like, number 1, retribution against his enemies. Number 2,
Yeah.
like, worsen the situation in Ukraine. Or write down 10 things, but be like relatively specific
And-
in like a sentence.
Yeah,
And then
okay,
when we meet, I
okay.
want to see how many of those things actually come true, because I'll do the same.
I
I'll
hope
write
none
down.
of them come true. I
Yeah,
hope
but-
that I
but
am
this is a good
wrong.
exercise.
Assuming
I
he
hope that I don't
wins,
have to walk
as-
around with a passport.
Sure, but assuming he wins, here's the thing: is I think one of the problems with your side of the argument is that you can find no positive with regards to Trump, and there clearly were in his 4 years, and I can find both positives and negatives with regards
Well,
to
I'm
Trump
very
in his
proud
4
of you,
years.
Jonathan, for doing that. You're
So-
not
so-
living this
so-
absolute nightmare.
but
I mean, I live 12 miles from DC. I listen to this shit every day, 24/7. It's exhausting.
well, that's because you got
and I
MSNBC
don't
on.
understand America that this would even be close.
Well, what
The
I'm
guy
trying to
is a
express to you,
lunatic.
what I'm trying to express to you, is that the reason
tell me.
reason it's where it is because other people have done the list of 10 things, but they've just done it retrospectively, and they've been able to see some positives.
Debbie, are you very angry that that we sent you Elon Musk all those years ago?
Oh my God, I'm offended that he's a South African, number one.
Yeah.
I really am.
You don't
And,
like him at
know,
all.
I would, I really love his car. I would never
Oh.
friggin' buy his car in a million years. I
Oh.
wouldn't give that guy a dime. The only
Oh.
reason why he's in bed with Trump is to give him power. Let's
Oh.
face it. I mean, I wish he'd give me $1 million.
Okay, but again, is
I
Elon?
would love that.
Is Elon? Are
Which
there
is
not
illegal as
positives to
hell.
Elon Musk? I mean, is the stuff he's done? He just rescued
like
your
his
astronauts
cars.
from the space station. Can you not
I
give him
thought that
credit
was
for that?
very cool. Very cool.
Okay,
but,
good.
Let's
That's-
face it.
See,
Let's
that's
face
what I'm
it.
saying.
Nice of
Is
you.
like
I
amongst.
mean, it's in a race for commercial spacecrafts. It's a race. He's a smart man. I'm not saying that he's not.
Sure.
I loved it when this guy is a billionaire so many times over.
Yeah.
And I loved it on national TV when he didn't like an answer. He did a Gareth Cliff. He said, "Fuck off." Is that exactly what he said? Good for him. But for him to be in national politics,
Hey,
Trump
okay,
is just,
I've thought of someone. How about Tulsi Gabbard? Okay.
You're really enjoying this.
How about no, Debbie? I love you. You know I love you, and
I
I'm always
know,
good.
I love you
And it's
too.
good insight, Debbie,
someone
to be
in the
honest.
comments. Someone in the
Yeah,
comments
I
says
know.
here,
It's
"Oh,
my reality.
you're not going to be friends." Here, Bushfeld Butts says, "Gareth, she won't be your friend anymore after this nonsense." So,
Oh, are
how
you
about-
kidding?
how about
We've been friends
Lieutenant?
for so long.
How about Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard? Don't you like her? She used to be a Democrat. She's a military
And now
woman.
she's
very
Wait a
smart.
minute.
She's
Okay, wait.
Please
a,
don't say she's a Russian
Wait a minute.
asset.
No. Wait a minute. Okay, tell me, what state? Tell me, give me a little bit. I know the name, but
So she's from
just,
Hawaii.
Oh,
That's her
Hawaii.
state. Yeah,
The
but
woman-
she's been in politics for a long time.
She was deputy of
served-
the DNC actually at
she
one
was,
point.
she was deputy of the
Yeah.
Democratic National
Yeah.
Convention for a while. She's been a Democrat all of her life, been in military service. She's fought in wars. She's a very sensible person. She's got some strong opinions about not having to be involved in unnecessary wars and all the rest of it. Is that perhaps maybe an entry point for you into someone in the Trump administration that you might like?
Do you think that he would bring her in?
Yeah, she's definitely in.
She's in. She's fully endorsed him. I think she may be defense secretary. Actually,
You know,
There-
I
there's a
have
fair-
heard some
there's a-
really
she's
great
in the running.
things about her. I have. I've heard some good things about her. I don't know why she went to the dark side, but yeah.
How about
Okay, that's
how
great.
about
That's
Vivek?
great, though.
Vivek Ramaswamy, we like him, huh? Smart guy. I
Oh
mean,
my God. Are you kidding me?
oh no,
Are
no,
you
he's in his
kidding
dad.
me? That guy is ridiculous. Oh my God, you're just playing with me now. You were
Ron
just
Paul.
playing with me.
Ron Paul's going to
Oh
join the
my
Trump.
God, he showed up at a hotel doing a
Garrett, stop triggering
I
her.
was in this government thing. He shows up for this rally he was having, and I looked at him and said, "Really? Oh my God, really?
Okay,
No,
none of these
no."
guys. And JD Vance, you don't like him.
Oh my God, he is scary.
Okay,
Now that guy is scary.
Just
He's
your
a
opinion on
heartbeat away
JD.
from the- What?
Your opinion on JD? What's wrong with him?
He is so MAGA. He's so involved with the Heritage Foundation and with Project 2025. And I'm convinced that it was the Heritage Foundation that wanted him. Of course, they thought they would be running against Biden, and they're not. And so that kind of blew up because I think they would have picked a different candidate that was a little bit more centric. He sounds so, he could tell you, I mean, he's got a gift. He can tell you the sky is purple and you know it's blue, but you'd be looking up to make sure that it wasn't purple. He's so like scary, terrifyingly logical about, you know, that it's not true, but he really believes
He might
in
have
all
a bit
this
of
MAGA.
might have a bit of charisma.
There's no
I-
charisma to with charisma.
Well,
JD Vance, I mean,
I don't
come
know.
on,
His
there's
family
not a
seemed to
bit
like
of
him.
charisma.
Here's an interesting
His-
thing, right? Do you like Tim Walz? I mean, this is the vice president. He'll be your vice president if Kamala wins.
Yes,
Tim
yeah,
Walz.
I do
I don't
like
know
him.
anything about this guy except for the last 2-3 months. Did he fight in Afghanistan or did he not? I don't think he did.
He was
doesn't know.
National
No,
Guard.
he never
He
went
was
to war.
National Guard.
Oh, okay.
He's National Guard, and
No,
he was.
I think he. I don't believe he went to war, but I think he supported it in different ways with what he did here in the States, which you can do.
Do you think
you don't
that the
necessarily have to be in
nickname
them.
Tampon Tim is very unfair?
He's the kind of guy you want to have over for dinner, but I would not
Oh.
want his casserole. Actually, my neighbor made the casserole and it sucked. It's like, no, I don't need any tater tots and, cream of mushroom soup. I'm good. So, but, I think that it was not a bad choice in that he is a hunter, that he's kind of like a good old boy.
Doesn't know how to load his gun, though.
So I don't know about loading guns, so I wouldn't know that. I know that he's a hunter. I don't think I think that he put the fact that he could wear a camo hat is not necessarily
Debbie,
a
just
Republican
listen.
thing anymore.
We got to wrap this up. We're already 10 minutes over, but I do have to
Okay.
ask, do you still have your pussy hat from the last have you still got that
I
pussy
do.
hat? You do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You might
I've
need to
got
whip
my
it out,
nasty
eh?
woman. And you know what happened to me when I wore that nasty woman?
Mm-hmm.
This guy shouldered, what is it? What do you call it when somebody hits you like this guy
Yeah.
almost knocked me down.
Oh,
And
that's
I
horrible.
wanted to, yeah, it was awful. But
Oh, that's horrible. But
yeah.
Jonathan's right. I mean, you might have to pull out that pussy hat a little later on if things don't go well.
oh my God.
I mean, Debbie,
you know,
12. You said you're 12 miles from the White House. I mean,
Yeah.
you January 6th. I'd be ready if I were you. You need to
Yeah, why
storm the
don't you
Capitol.
go? Why don't you storm the Capitol on January 6th if Trump becomes president?
This is a big thing between Republicans and Democrats. We're fairly nonviolent. That's not going to happen. I mean, hey, 75,000 people showed up last week. It was amazing. It really was.
Where was that?
And there was
Kamala
in
rally.
Washington. Yeah,
Okay.
in Washington. Yeah. So what are you looking at there, Jonathan? What's going on now?
I'm just
Because
looking at if anything new is coming through. But
yeah, a lot of like the large.
so
like
far, the only news,
Philadelphia.
like extra new news, is that Mark Cuban is projected to be an aging lesbian.
Mark Cuban.
All right,
oh, you're
listen,
funny.
I'm going to let you go. Debbie, I know it's late at
Okay.
night. Thank you for staying up to talk to us.
I'll probably be up all night. So, look, thanks for having me on, Gareth, and maybe you can have me on sometime when it's not so controversial. I can give you like things
know,
going on in America and the entertainment
we
industry or
can
something.
talk about Italian food, and you'll have
I
way
would
more
love
to
that.
say.
You've
I know
been at
that.
my table, absolutely.
Oh. And
So,
you know what? We'll organize that dinner when you're here with Jonathan, and we'll look at your
Oh yeah,
10
I'll
lists.
just cook
right?
up something and try not to put
Your
a
top 10
laxative in
lists.
Jonathan's side.
So between the two of you, you're going to have your list of terrible things that could happen.
I
And
know
we'll
we're going to
see.
sit down. Yes, we'll do that, and we'll sit down, and we'll probably really enjoy each other's company. I look
right.
forward to it.
Be good,
All right,
Debbie,
love
and good
you.
luck. Good
Love
luck
you,
for the
Gareth.
day and the night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mwah.
There we go. There's
Ciao.
Debbie Droke. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you, Jonathan Witt.
Yeah, that was rough.
You got that hat, and Debbie sounds like she's got the pussy hat, and we're all ready to
Well,
go.
Debbie's got that shirt, but if Kamala doesn't win, then, as you said, incinerated within a week.
Oh, there'll be no reason to have that
Yeah,
anymore.
done.
Yeah,
Done
and there
and
won't even
dusted.
be a book.
There won't even be. What happened to part 2?
No, there won't even be a book.
Because no one will buy it.
No, because she has nothing to say.
Yeah, it's so what I did see online, but it's everyone's just it's feelings at the moment. It's no actual numbers. And I learned my lesson in 2020.
Yeah, you were a bit traumatized by that.
Yeah, because
'Cause you went to
I
sleep at
stayed
night?
up all night
Yeah.
in 2020 and went to sleep at about somewhere around 5-6 in the morning. And when I went to sleep, the reason I went to sleep was because Trump was winning, and pretty much everyone was talking. Even CNN included was sort of saying, "Oh, it looks like Trump's got this, and Trump's going to win," and and they were all starting to commiserate. And then I went to sleep for a couple of hours and woke up, and suddenly he had lost. And obviously in all these states where they had these large mail drops and where there was subsequently all the arguments about what was legitimate and
Places
not
like
legitimate.
Maricopa County. And
Places like Maricopa
Arizona.
County in Arizona, the 12,000 votes in Georgia, the cured ballots also in Arizona, I think it was. So, there were all these sort of shenanigans that went down. And yeah, so until I see it on a map reported from a legitimate source, I'm going to assume this election is still very wide open. If Trump wins any of Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, then it's over. But at the moment, none of those are reporting, and neither is Arizona.
Yeah, we've got Harris 213 electoral college votes, Trump 251. That's, I'm afraid, where we're going to have to close it. But I'm going to be obsessing over this for the next day and a half, so don't expect to hear from me until Friday.
Cool.
All right.
I'll be listening.
You're going to be doing
and
heart
watching.
surgery later, so you also missed the election.
Yeah, as a journalist, as you know, I
Yeah.
often go and do heart surgery.
Very good.
So,
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have an awesome day, and good luck, America.